Up next, we have another speaker, Raffael from the So Real Digital Twins, who will be discussing how film, games, and social media are merging using AR. And we should have them ready. Oh, yeah, we've got them coming in.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. And I want to talk about how films, games, and social media are merging using AR technology in today's time. First, real quick about myself. So I'm the head of AR and film for So Real Digital Twins. We create the perfect digital twin, which allows you to, it's a high resolution scan. And here you can see which one is the real one, which is the fake one. And I'm going to dive into this topic in a bit, why this matters so much. In this case here, on both sides, the right one is the real one. The high-res digital twin is a CT scan, and it allows for both the interior and exterior to be digitized, which is pretty remarkable. And here's an example of that. You know, the absolute high resolution and perfect topology that can be used in games and on mobile devices as well. I also run a company called Superba AR. We create augmented reality applications for brands and mobile and also social media. And my personal background comes from the movies, over a decade in films, mainly on blockbuster films such as Iron Man, Avengers, and a lot of 3D previs visual effects, blowing things up, designing action sequences. So here's the topic, and why it matters is that we now have 3 different industries that are basically all coming together. They're all converging. So we have the film side, who traditionally was practical, just till maybe 20 years ago, everything was practical on the visual effects side. The game side was always digital, but it couldn't never match the quality of film. It was always just not as good looking and everything. And social media is sort of the new medium where the user is actually a content creator, but of course, until recently, wouldn't really dream of having access to the quality that the film people have, or even the game people. Yet that's completely changing, and all 3 are coming together. So when film around the early 90s started to go from practical effects to digital with Jurassic Park and Terminator 2, a whole new set of tools started to emerge, which is the creation of 3D computer software. And of course, that's when you start with crude models, and it started more simple, and it's still remarkable how these films hold up. And this is really important to understand its history, I believe, because computers back then were so slow, and the whole process took so long. And yet the quality that was achieved is really remarkable. And this matters because if you go fast forward to our social media people now, and YouTubers and influencers and everybody with a mobile phone, you have much more computing power than people had back then. So it's an important reference point to remember, where did film start and where is social media now? Again, just an example of practical effects. You had to build full-scale dinosaur, move it with animatronics and robotics, and yeah, it was a tall order. So, same challenge that has been around for years is the use of the green screen. It's still obviously prevalent today. That's about to change. And here's where we get the convergence of the game industry helping the film industry. For most of the time of visual effects of the last 20 years, everything is done in post-production and is done fairly slowly, meaning render farms to generate the final image takes a long time, a lot of computers. And the game industry, who was always about real time, but couldn't really quite match the quality of film, got better and better with Unreal Engine and also Unity. And as we now with real-time ray tracing can achieve a quality, all of a sudden the film industry is very interested in game engines. And this is where we are now. We got, here's a demo of real-time ray tracing just last year. And I'm sure a lot of you guys heard about it, but this is a computer game generated image. It's not a post-render, and it can rival now render farms and offline renders, which is incredible. So here the convergence of how the game industry is starting to penetrate the film industry. The social media influencer now all of a sudden is a storyteller and is starting to leverage basically real-time visual effects. If you go back to Jurassic Park, the dream of just tracking real-time onto a face would have been unrealistic. It would have been an absolute pipe dream. And yet here we are, and based on your phone, you can now create visual effects in real time and anywhere you are. A thing that started to develop in the last couple of years, in the last decade, is virtual production. It allows a director to scout a virtual set, walk around basically with a camera and scout and look around and see a set before it's built. And yeah, you see the connection. The connection is to the cell phone and the iPad now to be able to scout, look around and everything. So for 10 years, this step-by-step came along and we were built usually with motion capture. And you can see, you know, up on the picture, you can see those two markers where it was used with motion capture. You know, there was no AR kit, there was no AR. You had to use motion capture cameras to track such a device. And here we are in the world of AR today. You know, just everybody can, using a mobile device, can do more than what a director was able to do scouting just a couple of years ago. You can place objects in the real world, and you can place, move things around, see the result right there, record it and share it. Another pipe dream basically for films just in recently. And here you have the power to do the same thing. If you guys have watched The Mandalorian, maybe you've heard about it, why it's a breakthrough in filmmaking. A crucial part is that the disappearing of the green screen. So if we look back, the other picture I showed just a little bit a while ago with the Matrix, everything is a green screen. We're now entering the stage where the green screen is disappearing thanks to game engines. And so where all of a sudden you can actually have the background and the set extension in the stage in real time using LED walls. And you can change the sunset with the click of a button. You can swap out the whole environment where you're at. The game engine is really changing the way movies are made and basically let them do things that never been possible for, thanks to real-time technology. And that's all thanks to the guys from the game side. And here we are, basically today, yeah, the ability, same for you, in real time, being able to see and learn and place elements. It puts you, it's a reminder, it puts you basically in a position, the user at a position that was unfathomable for directors and also game designers not that long ago. And where does that bring us to? It all brings us together that all of a sudden we can enter worlds we've never been able to see before, but we're using tools that are all borrowed from different industries, all coming together, and all, as a result, all these disciplines are merging: game, film, social media, and all starting to use the same tools, and also starting to face the same problems. So a key element is the user all of a sudden can now become part of the story. You know, you can be Batman, you can be Indiana Jones, and obviously that changes the game for brand storytelling. It changes the game for the first time, it's not always about somebody else. If you look at traditional advertising, you're usually looking at an image of somebody else. It's a model or a campaign. And now thanks to AR and with all the tools that have come before it from the film and the game industry, all of a sudden you can now be part of the campaign or even be the center of a campaign. And you obviously see the result right there. We can change the game in shopping, marketing, and also in viral storytelling, because you're telling the story and you may share that one. Now, of course, where we are today, we also can see where all this is going. We got a combination or a new segment that's evolving from all this, and that's where a new language basically has to be developed. Till now, we're basically only lived in the medium of a 2D world, and we still do, which is the world of a flat screen. As human beings, we're 3D people, we're 3D. The world around us is 3D, but the world of information is flat, and we scroll through the phone, page 7, page, on Google, scroll and swipe. But now all of these disciplines, games, film, and social media that have come before, now have to tackle the next challenge, which is understanding the space around you and then bringing us actually to a real 3D world that combines the virtual world and the real world. But all the disciplines and all the knowledges from each one are needed to make that happen. Film world, the games, and social media. So let's go back to talk about what are the same challenges that are all now prevalent in this industry. Number one is realism. Everybody wanted to make it look as real as possible, which is a challenge. Where do you start? Do you have a, did you scan an object? Is it just a photo? It needs to be digitized. Do you have to build it from scratch? It's a big challenge. Always is in film, games, and also in social media. The ease of use. 3D tools are complicated. It's still not easy for somebody to just create digital assets. Many people now can use Photoshop. Many people can use apps to maybe liquefy their face and to face tune and adjust things. But 3D is still very hard. There's so many elements that have to go into it, especially if you want to do something that's a bit more advanced. The same thing is also the communication, is a big issue. The more complicated it's getting, how can you communicate with your clients or with the people you're working with what exactly you need? 3D has a unique language of like, are we talking about UV textures? Are we talking about blend modes? Are we talking about animated particles, volumes, all these things? Do all these elements combine? How do you talk to each other? Can people from the new industries understand this and speak the same way? The next challenge we all face together, film, games, social media, is storytelling. How do we involve the user? How do we use these tools to tell a new story? How do we use all these possibilities given to us to make something that's compelling and has never been seen before? And can we now go a route that is exciting? And we all face the same challenge, that it's all digital content. Okay, so it really means we gotta, everything has to be available first to work with it. And how do we match that where we need the content? So in the essence, we all share the same challenge. How do we blend the virtual world with the real world? How is that achieved? And that's a challenge we face today. And at Sorry, we're excited that we're part of that, the help of creating the perfect digital twin. And there's obviously many more possibilities nowadays how that can be achieved. And volumetric capture is coming, where people can be recorded live in motion. That's already available, it's just still very expensive. So many more things ahead and many more challenges ahead as the amount of data just really, really is growing. And here we have it. What does it look like? Do we have cameras who can digitize the whole world and understand where everything is at in real time? Do we have that in the cloud, the called AR cloud? And where we then can pull this right over 5G. So many more challenges ahead. It's important to go back again to think, okay, where did computer graphics come from in the 80s and 90s? How far have we come? And the key part is doing all of this in real time. It's not in post, it's gonna happen all at the same time. That's where the game changer is. So where do we go from here? The key disciplines and elements that all the three industries, so to speak, face is take advantage of machine learning and AI. Can things be learned and improved, and understanding patterns, understanding faces, digging through thousands of images and being able to help you? And how can that also help to achieve real time? I believe that 5G will be a game changer, because maybe we can move in the world of AR, we can move rendering off the device into the cloud, and your device is only the camera basically to look at. The importance of creating digital twins, how do we digitize it? How can we make it easier? How can we capture people going beyond the photograph? And how do we all store it in the cloud and make it accessible? So that could be used in film production on the set, maybe a game can also pull right from the real world, and of course in augmented reality to do information overlay right there. So thanks so much for listening. I'm happy to take any questions and
Brilliant. Thank you for that insight, Raffael. That was really cool to listen to. I don't know a whole lot about AR. It's not really my area, so it's nice to sit and absorb this stuff. We do have a couple of questions coming in. If you're happy to stick around and answer them.
Yeah, sure.
We've got almost all of the AR-enabled mobile games I've played cause the device to run incredibly hot. What is causing the processor to work so hard, and how can we avoid cooking hands and draining batteries?
Yeah, the issue is with AR, it's just using way too many elements together at the same time. And because you got to run the gyroscope at the same time, you got to run all the sensors of the phone at full blast to understand where you're at. Any other app, if you just use the camera, you're choosing just one element, but also you're using them continuously. So to make that better, it's obviously up to the experts at Apple and Google to figure that out. But it's a big challenge. And yeah, if you go to 5G, then at the same time, we're going to stream the data over and upload it at the same time. So that's not going to be easy either. But it's a challenge, absolutely.
Okay. Has anyone tried using VR to create 3D models like this? There's a link that I can't send you. I've been teaching 3D for years, and it hasn't become easier for anyone to learn over the past 10 years, but many improvements had been made 10 years prior. Now there are many more tools which helps improve the results, but don't make it easier to create.
Yeah, it's a good thought. There is some people who now work in VR. I personally can't be that long in VR that, like usually 3D works takes hours and hours. So I admire those people, but you will find 3D artists who model and sculpt in VR now. And also in scouting of film sets, some directors use VR headsets to walk around. For me personally, it's just still an issue to be able to be in there really, really long. Like, could you be in there 8 hours, and be also removed from everybody else? But it does, certain people do like to use it. And I agree with you, it has not become easier. It's just more options, more tools, but it's not that much easier.
Okay. I have a question back from when you said, when you were speaking about influencers getting more involved with AR. And I think there's this very new trend of companies using AR to create virtual influencers. Do you think that I guess real life flesh and bone influencers should be kind of observing this and observing brands creating these perfect influencers, virtual influencers that can basically say whatever a brand wants them to say? Are they more likely to be implemented in marketing over actual influencers? Do you think that's will be derogatory for them?
Yeah, it's quite surprising to me, because I always thought that the influencer is all about the person, that it's like you like this person and that's why you want to hear what they have to say, or their sort of personality shines above all. The virtual influencer to me suggests the opposite. But I don't know if that's more like a sort of a spoof on society a little bit, like, look, we can get somebody to do anything. And maybe what could be a virtual influencer could maybe do things nobody else could for real. But just a straight up copy and it's virtual, I would love to hear what are people fascinated with that much.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think there's such an importance of authenticity in influencer marketing, and like upfront, if you know that a virtual influencer is just programmed, then there's no authenticity up front there. It's an interesting one for sure.
I would say that everybody talks about authenticity, but everybody knows authenticity is a complete illusion. and people are more okay with it than we think. That
Yeah.
goes from the Instagram photos, who everybody knows is retouched and color corrected and optimized, to they know it's probably a brand deal that they're posting about, but still, yeah. I
Mm.
think people publicly are not okay with it, and then in private, it's just so overwhelming that we just take it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Someone has asked, people tend to turn off the AR functionality off in current games. In Pokemon Go, for example, everyone I know disables the AR visuals after a while because it doesn't affect the gameplay. How do you make the AR functionality core to the gameplay experience?
Sure. I think the issue is people are still not that much used to AR, and it's still, it's just more. It requires more work. Excuse me. You to walk around and look around is more work than just maybe tapping and all that. I think that's one. The other thing is just it will take time for people to maybe get used to this and also find it more interesting. I think once your phone understands the surroundings around you and you use this a lot more, and maybe also in other devices, when that becomes the new standard, that's when it will stop. But AR is still new, and there's still also sort of a question of maybe I'm not going to say surveillance, but you're looking at things and everything. Do you want that? Um, I still think there has to be steps taken both in the technology but also in user behavior. And if we just go back, social media, there was a time when people would say, I'm going to post everything on Instagram of my food. People would have laughed at you. They're like, nobody's doing that. You're the outcast. And then here we are. And, you can see that at every restaurant. So things can flip, can flip over time and fairly quickly. So it could happen there as well.
I think Pokemon Go is a really good example of a game that has brought AR kind of into the mainstream a little bit, and it's attached to such a big IP that people are trying it out. Is what other kind of things do you think will make AR more accessible in that kind of way to people?
I really think that shopping is going to change it. The ability to see elements on yourself and be able to try products virtually, see how you look, and already maybe get feedback from friends, I think is the big game changer, both in mobile but also in maybe stores that you could walk in and on a screen you could already see yourself and get an idea what it could look like.
Yeah, that's something I've looked into actually. I think that especially like IKEA made this thing where you can put furniture into your house to see what it looks like before you buy it, and I think things like that are really cool. Someone has asked, do you think the need to physically move limits the implementations of AR? Having to walk around the world or even get up and walk around a table seems to be a big hurdle for some gamers. How do you encourage people to get up and game?
Yeah, I think it's changing. It's new. People are very accustomed to just sit on the couch and just move their fingers, and it's a change, and it's not necessarily comfortable in every case. And there's cases where it's absolutely should not be done. I think it's not the right way to go. And then there's others where, yeah, it will make sense. And it will make it more interesting over time.
It's a succinct answer. With the advance of AR, is there a clear marketing use that has already started to be exploited? IKEA, for example. Do you think that AR will allow games to have a new monetization model with product placement in a way that is less disruptive for gameplay?
Yeah, I think so. I think the same way AR is evolving as a shopping and planning tool, it should evolve exactly that way. That um, the key part here might be that you could design a game that overlays over the real world. And I don't know, let's take a motorcycle. Maybe your job is to find a motorcycle outside, and it will recognize it. And now it overlays a virtual motorcycle over it, and you can do a gameplay with it. And now it's a sponsorship by the bike manufacturer, something like that. That's a completely still very untapped and huge potential for sure.
Absolutely. And we've got, do you think the consoles are going to get more on board with AR? Sony opted for VR with PSVR, but we're still waiting on Microsoft's XR headset. What do you think will happen there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're at the very beginning. We're like in the VHS age still of AR. If you look at the headset, what it is, and the pipe dream it is, it's a Tony Stark reading glass and has AI and sees everything. We're for sure not there, and it's going to take many more years to get there. But I think a key part will be that we got to get off the device, you know, and that's where 5G will make a huge difference. If you get to build a computer on your headset to see and compute, yeah, you could build a massive computer in your head and it's going to be small, but if it could be off the device or partially off the device to help, then all of a sudden the headset could be very light and things might change quite rapidly.
Mm. Do you see VR and AR as competitive technologies, or are they part of the same kind of family to you?
In my opinion, they're completely different. I always am amazed that they're mentioned in the same sentence. I think they have very little in common in the end. I think the VR community is way too focused on the hardware constantly because they have to. It's like, which headset, does it work? You know, does it have a cable or not? And the AR world is about the opposite. It's all about, we're right here, we're doing it together, and let's add very selective elements. So for me, they should not be mentioned in the same sentence.
Mm. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I guess they are, if you're very deep into them and you work in those spaces, they are very different. Um, One thing that I just thought about is that I remember when the PC VR headsets came out a couple of years ago, and they were kind of passed off as like a little bit of a novelty that people had one and you played on it for a little while and then you stopped and then you put it down and there was no real reason to go back to it. Is there any way that you can kind of make people see VR headsets in a different way because they have such a high price tag and they're quite, you know, they're not super accessible to a certain market and they're not really something that you would sit and do for hours at a time, I suppose. Is there a way to encourage people to buy into that market?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the way to go is if you want to experience VR, your best bet is go to a local VR arcade, which are popping up everywhere. You can do it with your friends. You don't have to buy the headset. And you might even have a backpack on and you really get to see the power what VR is. It's not necessarily alone, it's you do it with your friends and you're walking and you're in an empty room, but in the virtual environment, there might be fire under you and you're actually really, really scared. That's where you can see the real power of VR and they will have the latest tech and you have to worry about it. And I just don't think the idea of VR equals cell phone is correct. You know, not everybody needs a VR headset and should, and that's what the VR community obviously wishes for. But I don't think it's there. But the VR arcades are really well done and worth a visit, and I would try that.
Cool, awesome. Well, that is some cool insight. I'm going to wrap it up there, Raphael. But thank you so much for coming in and sharing your insight with people, and thank you for the presentation. I hope you enjoy the rest of your PGC.